It's time once again to go racing.
It does not get any better than this.
The pressure is really on now.
Yes, it's pole position. Lights out and we're racing in PSGL.
The first lap has been absolute chaos.
What an overtake.
Oh no!
I've never seen anything like it.
Side by side again. This will be settled right at the end. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to PSGL for another fantastic race here in Season 30 in the top tier on the PlayStation platform. We are at the Red Bull Ring tonight, a short, fast circuit for round number 6 of the championship, the Austrian Grand Prix. My name is Luke Etheridge, and joining me in the commentary box, as always on a Monday, is Aidan Carter. And Aidan, this circuit, we're going to expect slipstreaming. We might even expect some bad weather. We're going to expect penalties, and hopefully we're going to get some fantastic racing.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'm sure we're going to expect. There's going to be a lot of things to expect this evening. I think anybody that knows this game and knows Austria well, this track it's kind of a lottery really as to how it can go. Weather plays a part, like you mentioned. Time penalties are quite common here. Of course, it's very easy to drop the car at many points on this track, so safety cars are likely to play a part as well. So yeah, this track is kind of a little bit of luck of the draw and managing the DRS trains well. So I think we probably could see maybe a few surprise results tonight.
Yeah, I think as you can see from the predictions we've gone for on the left-hand side of the screen, maybe not two names that you would expect to see, and two names that haven't had a victory so far this season, because Matthew Alder's won 3 of the races, and it is Isma who has won the other 2, including last time out at the Hungarian Grand Prix. A fantastic victory from pole position, just pipping Max Wiesel in the end. Jack Eater ended up finishing second, and originally it was Matthew Alder down as finishing in 3rd place. However, you might remember he had a bit of a controversial contact with Hamilton. He ended up getting a 5-second penalty for that, which dropped him down into 7th place. However, it is still the young Brit at the top of the driver's standings. 60 points for him. Isma for a further 6 points behind. It is Max Wiesel in 3rd place on 43 points, and then Fusilio Danirko rounding out the top 5. You can see the rest of the standings there, but it's already looking like it is going to be Matthew Alder versus Isma, and maybe Max Wiesel just stepping it up there to make it a 3-horse race.
Yeah, I think last time out proved that Matthew Alder isn't totally invincible. He'd been on such a run of good form up until then that I think everybody was maybe losing faith in there being a championship battle. But yeah, like you said, Isma pulled it out of the bag, had a brilliant race. Matthew Alder, he was strong, he was fast, but he made crucial errors, and that's not something we've maybe seen from him so far this season. So that's maybe opened the door a little bit for the drivers like Isma and Max to pounce as well. And of course, there's still plenty of time to go. We could have a run of bad luck maybe for some of our leaders, and there could be someone a bit further down who may have a really strong run midway through this season and jump up. So yeah, plenty to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, we have seen things happen like that before. I think but Duncan and Yost a couple of seasons ago had a really bad starts and ended up battling with Wilson Hughes right until the very end. The win for Isma, though, did promote Williams to the top of the Constructors' Championship. Red Bull Racing are in the 2nd place. Ferrari not too far behind, really close between those top 3 teams. Mercedes next on 42 points, and then Aston Martin, Alpine, Haas, McLaren, AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo picking up their first points of the season. Back, though, to tonight's race. We've already talked about some of the features of this circuit. Very different to the one that we had last week. Obviously at Hungary it's all about keeping that track position, being in the lead. Very difficult to overtake here. Half the circuit basically is a DRS zone, so if you drop outside of that 1 second, it's pretty much game over for you in the early stages.
Yeah, it really is. It's really crucial to be in DRS range around here. Like you say, half the track is a DRS straight. Even though the straights aren't that particularly long, it's still so crucial to be within range throughout the whole lap here. And yeah, it's one of those tracks where the DRS train management is the most crucial thing about the race more than anything else, really. Strategy here tends to be fairly easy, so you really have to manage those trains well. And the crucial thing is, in between the first and the last DRS zones, there's only really 3 or 4 important corners. The rest of the corners aren't really that much of a worry for the drivers. So dirty air doesn't really play a factor here either. So you're unlikely to see the field spread out. And if it does spread out, then that's going to be, pretty much race over for those drivers unless there's some sort of safety car.
Yeah, I mean, officially, it does have 10 corners, the least of any on the calendar. Turn 2 definitely is at the corner. Turn 5 is pretty much a continuation from Turn 4, and Turn 8 is only a slight right-hand kink. So you've only really got 7 major corners to gain any time on and lose any time. And being quite a short track, they're all shorter on the calendar. Monaco is obviously the shortest, but in terms of lap time, you're not going to see a shorter lap time than what we're going to get tonight in qualifying at the Austrian Grand Prix. So without further ado, let's head into that qualifying session. Drivers just getting ready to step out. We saw this in some of the lower tiers. A lot of drivers choosing to go for a set of the medium tyres. Expect to see sub 63 second lap times here.
Oh yeah, 100%. You'll see people into the 1 minute 2s in this session, unless of course they've got wet setups on, but we don't really know that as of right now. But yeah, I'm not surprised to see a lot of drivers out on the mediums. The gap in pace actually between the mediums and the softs here isn't that big. In fact, if you feel more comfortable on the mediums, you can go faster on the mediums than on the softs. So a lot of drivers, I'm not surprised, out on the mediums straight away. And because it is such a short lap, you can get 4 runs in. So if you maybe mess up one of your laps on maybe on the medium tyres at the start, or one of your early soft runs, you have enough time to go out and do a 4th run in this session. So that is why you're seeing a lot of drivers out on the mediums.
Yeah, a lot of drivers going, like you said, for the medium tyres. It is, we've already mentioned, one of the shortest circuits. And let's see who's going to head on the lap. Let's go on board then with Jensen on a set of the medium tyres in the Alpine. If he gets it right coming out of turn number 10, that's going to be one to watch out for in qualifying with the invalidations up the hill into the first corner. This track, oh, big slide there for Jensen, so he's not going to be setting any times alike. We've already got Hamilton invalidating as well, so let's see what Brock can do as he goes on the run up towards turn number 2. This slight little kink to the left-hand side, braking just after 100 metre board. You can brake a bit later here, snatch the front right, it doesn't matter because of the uphill nature through turn 3. DRS open, once again the final of the 3 DRS zones, as you've now got to be careful heading downhill towards turn number 4. You can see that Marshall board on the left-hand side. That is a good indicator of where to brake, and Brock actually slightly locking the rears up as he was heading downhill there. The rears, of course, unloaded into that corner, so it is easier to do. Now coming through turn number 6 and 7, this is where you really need the downforce on the car, and Brock 44.2 at the moment. Really looks like he's sliding a bit on those mediums as he comes through turn number 8. Be careful of that pit entry on the right-hand side. You can get penalties for cutting it, and we all know how controversial that can be in PSGL and other leagues. Through 9 and 10 then for the Haas driver as Brock heads towards the finish line. What's it going to be from him? 103.788, 103.6 for Asacombe. Also on a set of medium tyres. Just trying to see if we've got anyone heading towards the end of a lap on a set of the soft tyres. We've got Santeri on his debut. He's gone fastest on a set of mediums, 103.541. Matthew Alder slotting in just behind, and Cornet, he does a 103.8, so clearly backing off on that set of the soft tyres. But decent lap times from those top drivers on the mediums.
Yeah, pretty decent. And like I said, the gap between the softs and the mediums here isn't that big. So yeah, not surprised that some of the early runs on the softs are particularly fast. Wouters, the highest soft runner now, goes into P3 in the Williams. So not a bad lap from him, but still not at the very top of the timesheets as you would expect from someone on a set of soft compound tyres. Fabi next to come to the line. He now does go to the top of the timesheets on a set of softs, so won him at 3.4, but only just under a tenth of a second clear at the top of the timesheet, so it's still very close. And that is another thing about this track, is that while there's only 7 corners and not a lot of places to lose time, if you do lose time, you're going to get punished for it, because qualifying is so close here as Isma now goes to the top on his second lap on a set of mediums.
Yeah, Isma doing something we're seeing quite often, improving on a second lap on this game. Ogiano heads towards the line, 103.222, faster than what we saw pole position in F3. In F2 it was a 103.0. Can't really compare to F1 last year because it did rain in qualifying, and looking at the weather forecast for tonight, it could be a similar situation to what we had last week, where we're wondering whether the rain will come at the end of the race. But I think as long as it is a clean race without any safety cars or VSCs, and that is a big if around this circuit, they might just get away with it. Lars had a fantastic result here last season, finishing in 4th place as a reserve driver. He comes across the line, slots into 5th on a set of the soft tyres. The majority of the field has done their first ones. Ogiano goes fastest. Fabi now slots himself into 2nd. That's a very respectable lap time from Isma on the mediums. Good qualifying pace from him so far this season.
Yeah, really, really strong all season long, hasn't he? A couple of pole positions so far this season, and yeah, not surprising to see him up there on the medium tyres in 4th at the moment. Still with 5 people yet to set their times, but the 5 people yet to set their times aren't particularly strong in qualifying on most races, so you maybe wouldn't expect them to go ahead of Isma at this point in the session. So yeah, really good stuff from there, but I doubt that that's going to sustain itself inside the top 10 for the full session. It would be nice to see if someone could get inside the top 10 on the mediums, but it's going to be really, really difficult. It was just riding with Denerco there on his first run, and he had a massive slap of oversteer coming out of turn number 1, and that is his lap pretty much ruined before it's got going.
Yeah, big slide through turn number 1. 15.9 through the first sectors. Not terrible, but it basically is one corner. It's all about how you, I suppose, get the exit out of turn 10 and get that run through turn number 1. And he did look a bit slidey as well on the rear, coming through turn 3. That seems to be a feature of this track at the moment. Drivers really struggling for grip. They're slinging it around like they're on a go-kart and wet conditions here. They really are struggling to get the purchase needed from those Pirelli tyres. We'll see what his Sector 2 time is like at the moment. 44.0 in total, 28.1 through there. So much more like it in the middle sector. This still could be a very decent time from Denerco, who is having a very decent run in the championship at the moment. 2 podiums so far this season. 5th place, only 1 point off of Fusilio in 4th. And Denerco heads towards the line, slots himself up into 3rd on a 103.315. I feel like if he'd got that clean, that definitely would have been the fastest time.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that he'd lost a good bit of a tenth or maybe a bit more in the first sector because of that wobble. So, yeah, that is a really solid time considering the fact that he had that moment in the first part of the lap. So, yeah, brilliant stuff from the Aston Martin driver to get right up there. And our lead championship protagonist really at the moment is Isma, still in 5th on those mediums. But the rest of them aren't... Well, Max is up there in 2nd, but he's obviously a little bit further behind. Isma in 5th and Matthew Order down in 10th at the moment. The field is so close, but you're not seeing the traditional people at the front in the early stages of this qualifying session. So I wonder if that'll change as it goes on, but at the moment it doesn't quite look like it. Fusilio's crossed the line, only managing a 4.1 in the Mercedes, so he's way down at the moment in 15th.
Yeah, way down in 15th. Denerco is improving again though. He's gone purple in the middle sector, I think, at the moment, so looking very good indeed. Doesn't need to find much to get on pole position. Could we see the Aston Martin be the first man into the 103.1s? No, just loses out slightly in that final sector, and I think in the end it was only a personal best in the middle sector. Still good enough to get himself up into 2nd place. A few other drivers are just finding some tiny improvements. Fusilio one of them, but didn't gain anything in Sector 1, so I do wonder if he backed off of that lap as he demonstrates perfectly how to take the pit lane at the Austrian Grand Prix circuit. Very well done, sir, from him. Down, though, in 15th at the moment. Hamilton's backed off on his lap. We're not really seeing any massive improvements at the moment, but still just over half of the session to go, and it is Oggiano, Denerco, Max Wiesel, Fabi and Isma your top 5. Walters with another good performance in 6th, and then Lars, H-Eagle, Santeri, Matthew Alder and Asacombe in that 11th place, which is still key obviously on this game. Alternate strategy still very important, and especially around here, if you can stick with the cars early on, you don't lose as much as we've already spoken about on the medium tyres, and you can be lightning quick at the end of the race.
Yeah, you really could. And obviously, when you get towards the end of the race, more people will be fighting one another, trying to gain as many places as they can. And that's a real opening for those that are on the softs at the end of the race to try and attack those fighting one another. So, yeah, the alternate strategy is strong here. Not as strong as we've seen at other tracks we've raced at this season, but it is still going to play a factor in the latter stages of this race. Interestingly, Isma's gone out again on the same set of medium compound tyres. He's the only one to do so. Everybody else is on the softs. As Matthew Alder now goes to the top on a 103 flat, so he skips the ones and goes straight to a flat. So now that is a new benchmark for everybody else to try and hit. But I'm not really seeing anybody else make any improvements at the moment. They've either all backed off or all invalidated. Isma's going again on the same set of mediums, so he's really pushing to try and start inside the top 10 on these tyres.
Yeah, Cornet gets himself up into 11th. It's been a good season for his teammates so far, as we spoke about. Not good at all for the Dutchman, though. Only finished one race so far, and that was well out of the point, so he'll be hoping to kick-start his season. Farby's slightly up at the moment, 16 thousandths of a second, but with how close things are, if he nails the final corners, that could provisionally get him onto the front row of the grid. He heads towards the finish line, and in the end loses out by 18 thousandths of a second. Lars had gone faster in the first sector, but ended up invalidating his lap. H-Eagles backed off in the middle sector. We saw this last week. Drivers lightning fast out the block, setting brilliant times, and then as the session went on, just not improving as much as we'd have thought. Obviously around here, they do get more chances to set a lap time, so maybe just pushing that extra little bit harder because they know they've got more opportunities.
Yeah, that may be the case that they've got the opportunity to do so, but it is bizarre that history seems to be repeating itself in the fact that drivers can't seem to get any sort of improvement in that middle run. The only one, like we said, that has improved is Matthew Alder and then Cornet, but Cornet's still not challenging the front of the timesheets. Casper's crossed the line now in the McLaren to set his first proper representative time in the session, goes P8, 1,000th of a second ahead of his teammate. The two McLarens were inseparable last time out, and they're inseparable in qualifying at the moment, and it's still incredibly close in that midfield. So still all to play for. We're not seeing big improvements at all, with barely any improvements, but even a slight improvement could gain you a few places on the grid here. So you've got to really take anything you can get.
Yeah, certainly Oggiano's taking as much of the curbs as he dares at the moment, heads towards the line and slots in 3,000ths of a second behind Matthew Alder. Great lap then from the Italian, puts himself into second, fastest of anyone in the first sector. It's Dan Urko who's currently fastest in the middle sector. Be interesting to see what he can do on this lap. Isma has now come in the pits and put on a fresh set of soft tyres, but we're yet to see what he can do on that fresh set of soft tyres, and we're yet to see what the surprise package of last week can do. Jackie to put in a brilliant performance to end up finishing in second place. Only the second time he's been in the points all season, and the previous time was just before the break with a 10th position, his first ever podium last time in the top tier. Let's see what he can do here. One of the last drivers to set a time and instantly gets himself up into third place. Max Wiesel was going faster, but he's invalidated on his lap as well. Dan Urko is improving, 13,000ths up as he comes through the first sector and has backed off as he comes through the second. So Matthew Alder fastest at the moment, a third of the session to go, and obviously it's as close as we've come to expect for top 13 drivers separated by half a second.
Yeah, incredibly close, isn't it? As now Santeri goes even faster in the Alfa Romeo on his debut, goes up into P6, splitting the Ferrari, so good lap time from the Shizou driver there. We're still yet to see two drivers really set their times. That's Hamilton, who was again invalidated at turn number 1. He's really been struggling at turn number 1 so far in this qualifying session, and Jensen's still not got a valid lap time, a proper valid lap time on the board. A 13.9 is obviously well off the pace. We're still yet to see the best from him, and they're two drivers that have been very strong in qualifying so far this season, Jensen and Hamilton. Of course, Hamilton was on, well, a net pole position in Monaco before his grid place penalty, but you'd expect him to be a lot further up the field. Of course, he was fast as well last time out in Budapest, but that contact with Matthew Alder really completely took him out of the equation, unfortunately. So bizarre to see two drivers that are so strong in qualifying struggling so far to keep the car on the road.
Yeah, and obviously Jensen as well. He's 6th in the championship at the moment. He's only failed to score points once. We said you can get the alternate strategy to work around here, not when you're down in 18th in qualifying. That is going to be a big task from there, unless he improves. Obviously still yet to set any sort of really valid lap time. Dan Urko heading round the final corners. This is looking much better from the Aston Martin driver, so don't be surprised if he's challenging for pole position, and he takes it for now. 103.078 by Dan Urko in the Aston Martin. 18,000ths ahead of Matthew Alder. We're still a couple of hundredths off, though, what got pole position in F2. I know there's slightly different track conditions and you can't really compare everything, but you would expect these drivers to maybe just get into the 102s as Assecomb's put in a good lap. He's had a bit of a, I think even he'd admit he's not had the greatest season so far. No points, a best result of a 12th place, but a 6th now. He goes as Isma shoots himself up into 4th. It's looking better here for the Alfa Tauri.
Yeah, definitely looking a lot better in this session. And that was on his second lap, Christian, as well, on those tyres. So finding a bit more time on the second run. Isma getting his first run in on the softs as well. Only 4th on the grid so far. So only managed to find 0.3 of a second. It looks like he is going again on the same set of tyres. Actually, no, he's backed off. He's turned his DRS off. So he's backing off and is going to come into the pit lane probably at the end of this lap. But yeah, a lot of drivers getting their laps in. Now, Jensen got a lap in, but it's only P12 at the moment. That's more like it towards the front of where those alternate strategy runners will be, but it's not quite where we've seen him so far this season. And Fusilio finally getting a more competitive time on the board is in P10 at the moment. So not bad lap times from the two of them, but they're not in particularly great positions, especially Fusilio being 10th of the soft runners. If things were to stay like this, that could be a really dangerous pace for him in the race. Yeah,
definitely. You would want to be a lot further up the order, and that 3 laps on those tyres as well. Brox bailed on what would have been a slightly better lap time, I think, realising it wouldn't have been good enough to challenge for the higher end of just outside the top 10 or possibly even getting into the top 10. So he's decided to bail and come into the pits. It's going to need to be a quick turnaround by the Haas boys, but of course it is the shortest lap time on the calendar, so you can get away with this a bit more. And we are just seeing the first few drivers heading out for their final laps. Oggiano, one of them. He's got a Mercedes behind him. That will be of Jacques Eden, Max Wiesel and Fabi. Both Ferraris heading out earlier on as well. Walters is also out there on track. Both McLarens, H-Eagle, Hamilton. He's the one we really need to watch out for. We know he's quick, but we've not really seen the results to go with the pace. Only 2 points so far this season. Could have done so much more at Monaco if he'd have qualified on pole. Perhaps should have done so much more last time out at Hungary if he hadn't have had that contact with Matthew Alder. So will be intriguing to see what he can do, as it looks like H-Eagle is going to be the first man to set his final times in this session.
Yeah, first man to do so. So coming through turn one, we'll see what his turn one looks like. Takes a lot of curb on the inside, but it's a lovely exit from the corner. He's given himself just enough time as well, so that if this run doesn't quite go his way, he can go again on the same set of tyres. Everybody else is leaving it to the last minute to get their runs on the board by the looks of things. So yeah, some drivers are going to cut it very fine. H-Eagle through the first sector. Not a bad first sector from him, but it's not really going to be challenging those at the front of the field. It is a half a tenth improvement, but he's still about a tenth and a half down on the best we've seen so far. Maybe it's more setting the car up for the middle part of the lap. Has he maybe got a bit more downforce on that Red Bull as he heads through the second sector split? This will be a bit more of an indication of how the car is set up as he heads through that part of the track. And he's found nearly 2/10 in the middle part. So at the moment, that 2/10 improvement could put him solidly inside the top 10.
Yeah, definitely. I think he might just run a tad wide coming through turn number 7. We'll see if that did affect his time. It looked like he was a bit late getting onto the throttle, and with how close things are here, any slight hesitation can make the difference. Heads towards the finish line and does just sneak himself up into the top 10, so I think he'll be hoping he actually drops down out of that. Max Wiesel shoots himself up into 3rd place, becomes the 4th driver to get himself into the 103s, and that's his qualifying over, judging by that massive twitch he had coming through turn number 1. Oggiano's invalidated, so he is going to get another opportunity, of course. Matthew Alder, he's down coming through sector 1. What's his time coming through sector 2? He's still down as well. It's all going to be possibly about the final run in this session for our championship leader.
Yeah, it could be all about this final run. Like you say, he's going to have to nail it. What is this final sector looking like? He's already so fast in the final sector. If he finds any more time, as Hamilton finally gets a time on the board, and it's enough to go provisional pole. That came out of nowhere. Matthew Alder did improve in the final sector, and he's going to go again by the looks of it on the next run. But that's a massive snap of oversteer in turn 1. He's in the wall. That is his session over and done with. So the 3rd is the best that he can hope for in this session. We're still yet to see the best of Mizza, who is slightly up at the moment. So could he now challenge for pole position?
He's only half a tenth of a second up, but look how close things are. Half a tenth would currently put him right behind his main championship rival on the second row of the grid. The Williams throws it around the final corner, heads towards the finish line. What's it going to be for Isma? And he does go in just behind his rival, 7 thousandths of a second. If things are really heated up at the moment, Oggiano's invalidated again, and that would have been a time in the 102s for him. So Brock now comes across the line. He goes into 9th place. Assacombe shoots himself up into 8th. We've got, I think, a Williams coming in behind. That'll be Walters. He stays in 14th place. Next, I think we've got an Alpine heading towards the finish line. Jensen can only stay in 18th. Big shock for him. A lot of the drivers are now coming into the pits. Who else are we going to see heading towards the line? Casper, 16th, the best he can do at the moment. His teammate also dives it into the pits. I think that could well be it then for this qualifying session. Most of the drivers have finished. Fede, though, he's heading towards the line. What's he going to do? Doesn't challenge for the fastest, but gets himself up into 14th position. Fusilio as well, not enjoying this track as much, but 12th place, still a respectable time. Still just over 2/10 of a second off of pole position, which is the second time he's been fastest in qualifying, but it's the first time he's actually got the reward for it. It is Hamilton on pole position with his only valid lap of the session.
Yeah, that is cutting it fine and putting pressure on yourself, isn't it? Maybe Hamilton just thrive a little bit more under pressure, because that is a brilliant lap time to get right at the end. Denurco was improving on his run, but invalidated in the middle part of the lap. So that seems like maybe a lost opportunity there for Denurco to start on pole. But God, look how close it is at the front of the field. The top 7 are separated by less than a tenth of a second. That is incredibly close. And then Assacombe and Fabi and Brock are not that far behind either. So can't believe that Cornet, 11th on the grid, probably one of his better qualifyings of the season, is just over 2/10 off pole. That is, we said it was going to be close, but that close, I didn't expect it to be such fine margins.
No, and if it is that close, that could be fantastic news for anyone, of course, starting on that alternate strategy, which you would expect the majority of the drivers possibly to do outside of the top 10. But it is Hamilton on pole for the first time this season, despite it being the second time He's been fastest in qualifying. Danerco starts on the front row. The two main championship rivals are 3rd and 4th. Matthew Older and then Isma. Max Wiesel just behind them again in 5th place. Oggiano, 36 thousandths of a second off pole position. It's only good enough to get him 6th on the grid. Giacchita and Asacone make it an all-Italian 4th row. Farby, then Brock are the final drivers in the top 10. Cornet will get a fresh set of tyres in 11th, as will Fusilio, Lars Kramer, Santeri 14th on his debut in the top tier. And then it is Fede, Walters, H. Igor, Kasper and Jensen. Last of the drivers. Definitely not the qualifying Jensen would have wanted, but definitely the qualifying Hamilton would have wanted to do. Getting that pole position effectively left himself with one shot qualifying. So I wonder if he could have gone a tiny bit faster if he'd have got a banker lap in earlier on.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. If he'd had something to aim for in that latter stages of qualifying, I imagine that would have taken the pressure off of himself. But like I said, maybe he likes driving under that kind of pressure. So yeah, good for him to get that lap done right at the end of the session. That comes off the back of a good qualifying in Budapest as well. Of course, wasn't on pole, but was right at the front of the field yet again in qualifying. So is it 3rd time lucky for Hamilton? Is he finally going to get one of those, at least a podium finish, something that he deserves with the pace that he's got? It's going to hopefully for him be a better race than it has been so far this season for him. And then word on Jensen as well. Jensen last on the grid, obviously not what we're usually expecting. He's only 3.5 tenths of a second off pole, but he's last on the grid in 19th. That is how close it is. If that was any other track, 3.5 tenths would probably put you at the bottom end of the top 10 maybe. 19th on the grid here though, that is just how fine a margins it is at Austria.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose the one good thing of starting right at the back of the grid is you're going to avoid any concertina effect into turn 1 and definitely into turn 3 as well. We did see that in the top tier of the PC, and I think a few of the drivers ended up getting punished for that. But what have we got in store for us around the Red Bull Ring? 4.318 kilometres, 2.683 miles for 10 turns with 3 DRS zones, meaning it is going to be absolutely crucial to stay within DRS range of the car in front of the track. That hasn't changed much over the past 35 years, as we're now going to head into the race and have a look at what tyres everyone is on, and it is exactly what we expected. We knew what the top 10 were going to be on, and we pretty much knew what the bottom 9 were going to be on as well.
Yeah, we pretty much do, like you say. There's no point if you're at the back of the field starting on the softs, because you just get stuck in a DRS train. The only way that starting on the softs outside of the top 10 could benefit you is if we have an early safety car and then no others after that, but that is highly unlikely to track like Austria where the pack is so close. So yeah, smart from those outside the top 10 to be on the medium tyres. It's just about whether they can keep up with the soft runners in the early phases.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about the delta between the drivers. If Cornet, judging by the qualifying pace, I'd say he's got a chance of being about 7 or 8 tenths of a second off of Brock by the time it comes to the DRS. And if he can stay in that range, this is going to be a brilliant opportunity for him to get some decent points. With his teammates up in second, a really good chance for Aston Martin, who are currently fifth in the Constructors' Championship, but it is Danerco who has earned every single one of these points, and he's actually leading the cars around the final corner. Hamilton's taking it a bit easier on this formation lap. That strategy there, the one stop, is the one you're going to see. We'll be very surprised if we get anyone doing a 2-stop, but there is a very small threat of rain at the end of the race. That could get a lot bigger if we see any safety cars. And of course, there's a big battle. 3rd, 4th and 5th, the top 3 in the championship. This is going to be one to watch on the start line. Everyone now coming into position. Jensen, the final car, down in 19th place. What can he do? Can he get another point score this season? What can Kasper do from 18th on the grid? Came so close to getting a podium here last year before spinning out in the latter stages. He'll be hoping to redeem himself. We are now just waiting for the lights to come on here. Hamilton's left the session as we're starting. We've got 5 lights here. There we go, they come out. The Austrian Grand Prix is underway, and it is going to be Danerco who takes the lead into turn number 1. Absolute disaster for Hamilton, because he's just going to drop a long way down the order. Everyone seems to have kept it fairly clean in the background. Farby running wide as he's battling side by side with Asacone and a few of the other drivers, but it is Danerco in the lead of this race. Matthew Older shoots himself up into second place. Max Wiesel trying to go all the way around the outside of Isma, and I think he's managed to pull it off on the traction. So great overtake by Max Wiesel, getting himself up into 3rd place. Jensen's already shot himself up a few places further back, as now all the slipstreaming begins in these early stages. On board with Lars Kramer around the outside. He's going to try it on Philip Walters here, just not quite got the grip in these early stages. And Giacchita and Farby battling side by side. Mercedes versus Ferrari. Which one of these is going to come out on top on the first lap of the race, and I think Jack Eater's going to end up getting that place and staying in 8th position as Hamilton does rejoin, but the damage has already been done. He's down into 7th place, and it is Daneyko leading from Matthew Alder, Max Wiesel and Isma.
Yeah, that is such a shame for Hamilton. After another good qualifying, something out of his control was just dropped him down the field, but hopefully he can recover at some point in this race as everybody starts to work their way through now. I think he's back in control of his car by the looks of things, but I don't know. Yeah, it looks like he's down into 11th place, unfortunately, the Alfa Romeo. So going to be a long old race from him from now on to try and work his way forward. As Isma is looking like he's going to lose another spot here. Oggiano down the inside, coming up towards turn number 3. Isma's going to try and break his way around the outside, but that puts him on the curb, and you just can't put the power down on that curb, and Oggiano breezes up into 4th place. So not the opening couple of laps Isma would have wanted championship-wise. Matthew Alder up to 2nd, and Isma's dropped a couple of places despite the poor start for Hamilton's car.
Yeah, if we do get the position changes up there, you can see he's dropped 1 place. Hamilton obviously dropping 10. That really not representative. Fusilio down 4. The biggest winners, Max, Oggiano, Asacombe and Brock, obviously getting help going up 2 places, and Philip Valters up 4 as well. He's had a fantastic start to this race as the Slipstream Fest will begin in earnest next time around. First time they're going to be able to use DRS, of course, is on the run out of turn number 1 on the next lap, and it looks like the entire field is in that DRS train at the moment as Matthew Alder sets the fastest lap of the race. Then it goes to Oggiano, of course, all taking advantage of the slipstream in these earlier stages. It's going to be really difficult to overtake if you are the 2nd car, well, if you're the 3rd car in the train, as I think Fusilio's worked his way past Jensen to get up into 16th, and Casper now trying to have a go at the Alpine driver as well. But with both of them having the DRS, there's not a lot he can do here in this situation. Down the inside, he goes into turn number 3. And now it's going to be a straight drag race. Both of them are going to have the DRS, and I think Casper is just about going to hold on to this one. Jensen's going to try and hang it all the way around the outside, but that is going to be a big, big struggle for him to do so. And there we go. I think finally Casper has got that position with the help of just putting Jensen ever so slightly over that curb, of course. Not as much as what we saw Perez do as Jensen, but just tapped the back of Casper there. Might have been tapped by H-Eagle as well. He spins round, and he is in last place. I know it says Hamilton's in last place, but that is just a visual glitch. I think he has disconnected again, though, so that might well be the case. But Daneyko leading this race at the moment, and he's pulled out about half a second gap. Considering he's not got the DRS, he's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, doing a pretty solid job as Fusilio now, fastest up on the medium compound tyres. That's already showing that the medium tyres have got some pace. And one person who's proving that as well is Cornet. Cornet's right on the back of Farby for P9, but isn't quite close enough, I think, to have a move at turn 3, unless he goes for a dive move. But at this point in the race, it's just too early to be making those kind of moves, so he stays behind for the time being. Yeah, I think the key thing that proves Daneyko's got some good pace here is he's not burning his ERS. He's got pretty much identical amounts of ERS to Matthew Alder in the lead of this race. You would expect the leader to be, well, losing ERS by the tens of percentages by lap, really, by leading this race, leading this DRS queue, but it's not the case for Daneyko. So he's obviously got some pace left in reserve that he's just not using at the moment.
Yeah, doing a very good job indeed. Of course, he's challenging for the top 6 drivers in the Challengers as well, and that just gives them that extra confidence, and they have raced around this in Challengers, have quite a few of these drivers, so they should be used to the setups, they should be really used to these tracks, and you can see he's doing a good job at the moment. The deltas will update as they come across the line. Again, it's around half a second. Max Wiesel really close to the back of these, and I think you can also tell he's got pace in hand by the fact that Casper in 16th place is doing the fastest lap on the set of the medium tyres. You would still expect the softs to be the best tyres at this point in the race, as here could be a change for the lead down the inside into turn number 3, and that is Matthew Alder who takes the lead of this race. And is Max Wiesel able to follow through? Not on this occasion. Daneyko not with the DRS, but even without it, he's still going to be able to remake that position. Up he goes, back into first. Now, that battling, as long as they don't hold each other up, as it looks like Daneyko has just ran a tiny bit wide, and I think Jack Eaton and Lars might have had a bit of an issue, both of them dropping down the order. As long as they don't hold each other up, there's nothing wrong with this position swapping. If they start battling too hard, that's really going to play into the hands of those on the medium tyres.
Yeah, it really is going to play into their hands. Nikita there, I think he may have had contact with someone at turn number 3 and is just backing off and letting everybody through from here on out. But I think Lars was involved in that maybe in some sense. I don't think they made direct contact with one another. I don't think they were close enough on the track. It might have been Fabi actually, because into the pits comes the Ferrari driver with a lot of his end plate missing, and Cornet's in as well. So another race where Cornet is looking like he's going to be hampered by some sort of early incident in the race. It's going to have to see if he can recover from that. Interestingly as well, Brock into the pit lane. That's a front wing change as well. So actually, a lot of drivers making contact there. Yukita's retired in the pit lane, unfortunately. That's really early in the race. And now all of a sudden it's kicking off at the front. Max Wiesel now into the lead, but Matthew Order's going to try and retake that position. Neither of them have got DRS through that detection point, and Max Wiesel is just going to hold on to it into turn number 4 for the time being. But a shift around at the front of the field, but they are still fighting very hard.
Yeah, and I think another driver who might have had an issue, I think Philip Walters, he was a lot higher up than 11th place earlier on, and all these issues for those lead cars on the medium tyres has really opened up a train, and you can see there Walters just quite happy to let HE go by. He has got damage, you can't really see it, but he has got end plate damage, so that is why he's dropping down the order like a stone at the moment. So this is perhaps a bit of good news for those top 6 drivers on the softs, is that they have now built a gap to Fede, who out of nowhere is the lead car on the medium tyres. Started in 15th place, and all of a sudden looking pretty good for a good result, but a lot is going to depend on various different things, as I think we've had a spinner, and that is Hamilton. Things go bad to worse for him. He's disconnected, he's desynced a bit, and now he's spun it round at the final corner. Back towards the lead, Max Wiesel holds on to it on this occasion, and Matthew Order just gets a bit of wheel spin there. Probably won't be able to challenge back into turn number 4.
Yeah, not quite close enough to challenge back. I think, that, of course, with the double toe as well, he's not going to be able to get close enough with the drivers in front having DRS. Wouters has gone and put the hard compound tyres on in that pit stop, so going to be a long old race for the Williams driver back from here to try and recover any sort of points in this race. One thing interesting to note for Fede, he's not got really any ERS left in his back pocket, but in the middle part of the lap last time around, he was much faster than the soft runners in front. He's just losing all of that time again down the 3 DRS straight. So I'm wondering whether it might be a smart choice for Fede to let Santeri through. Santeri has a lot more ERS to hand. He'll be a lot faster in a straight line, and he seems to have the pace in the middle part of the lap as well. So Santeri on debut here could be a real lifesaver for some of these medium runners if he gets ahead of the second AlphaTauri. Yeah,
I mean, this is what I mean. You've got to almost work as a team in this situation. If Santeri is quicker than you, just let him through. Follow him, save a bit of ERS, get the DRS, and if you keep swapping and don't lose a lot of time, is what we're seeing happen at the front as Matthew Order shoots his way back past Max Wiesel. You can really get yourself in a good chance. So you've got the Red Bull and the Ferrari battling hard at the Austrian Grand Prix. Where have we seen that one before? As Hamilton retires from the race. We are then down to 17 runners. Things really not going well for this season in the race for Hamilton, even if his qualifying performances are fantastic, as Lars again fastest lap on a fresh set of mediums. Interestingly, that he's gone for a second set of the medium tyres, so that means he is going to have to pit again in this race, whereas Cornet and Walters have gone for a set of hard tyres, and there we go, Walters working his way past Cornet. These two would have been hoping for a much better performance. They're now down in 15th and 16th place, but you can see already now having Santeri ahead of Fede, he's got that gap down to Asacone to 2.3 seconds.
Yeah, it's coming down by a tenth of a second nearly every corner. The mediums have got a lot more grip at this point. What the medium runners need is more battling between the leaders here. Matthew Order and Max Wiesel swapping positions is just going to hold them up the further into the race they go, and Matthew Order did not get a good run at all out of turn number 1. Denurko got the best one of the 3, so he's almost forcing Max Wiesel to make a move on Matthew Order here, so it's going to slow this whole train down. Max Wiesel round the outside, just a slight rear lock on the way into the corner there. Didn't quite get the car stopped as he would have wanted, but he's got a better exit. But again, he didn't time that move well, and neither of them have got DRS. Denurko's going to try and get the pair of them here around the outside. He's got one. Can he get around the outside of the second one? Matthew Order's going to run him almost completely out of track. Matthew Order holds the lead. Denurko back up into second position, and that was well read from Denurko. We saw Max and Matthew Order fighting, waited, and then pounced when he got the opportunity.
Yeah, just very smart there from Matthew Order. Just let him have the position into turn number 3, knowing that you can fight back into 4, and did manage to. And in the end, Denurko did manage to get a position, as I'm not too surprised by this, actually. He's going for a very aggressive early pit stop off the soft tyres, going for an undercut. We're only on the end of lap number 9 here. 27 laps is going to be a decent amount of time to get your set of medium tyres to go, but it is definitely doable. So Denurko into the pits, and it is going to be the yellow wall Pirelli tyres going on the Aston Martin. He heads out the pit lane, and he'll be hoping, of course, that he gets himself ahead of Brock, which he should do comfortably. And this just might trigger a chain reaction from all those drivers up ahead because they know they're going to probably lose out to Daneco here. And if he can pull out a DRS range gap, this could work.
Yeah, this could work beautifully for Daneco, kind of catching everybody a little bit off guard, going a bit early. He may as well do it now, try and get that DRS gap. We've already seen that once you're in DRS range, it is so hard for the car in front to drop the car behind. So he's got to give himself that opportunity on track and try and pull away. The tyre fall off on the mediums isn't that big until you get right up towards puncture territory, as you would expect. So yeah, he's gone at the earliest possible opportunity to get those tyres to the end, and everybody of the leaders looks like they're committing, apart from Isma. Isma's trying something different. Isma may as well try something different here. He's at the back of that soft queue leading the race. If he follows everybody else in, he's just going to finish where he already was. So he may as well try something different, maybe hope for a safety car in the next couple of laps and benefit from it.
Yeah, he did get undercut, of course, last week, and then was quicker at the end of the race on his fresher tyres, so he might be thinking for something similar here. Lars has retired from the session. I believe that might be out on track, so he could get himself into a bit of trouble for that one. As there we go, Daneco does take the net lead of this race, and has he managed to get that DRS gap? Not quite to Matthew Alder, and you can just see on board with the Red Bull here, he's using as much of his DRS as he dares to try and ensure that Daneco does not build that gap, but he has got the lead of this race, and Matthew Alder in second position, Max Wiesel in third, and there we go, you can see Matthew just trying again to close that gap down to a second. There is still, of course, the actual leaders. These drivers are in the left lead, and it is Isma 2 seconds ahead of Santeri, Fede, Fusilio, Casper, H-Eagle. You'd expect those drivers to stay out longer, and if they stay out long enough to be caught up by Daneco and the rest of the pack, that could make it awkward for those drivers.
Yeah, it could make it very awkward, like you say. We've already seen it's so difficult to get through a train, so the second they catch up, it's going to be about how they manage that, whether they just sit behind and wait for them to pit, or whether they go aggressive and try and make overtake stick and try and put cars in between themselves and the cars behind. Matthew Alder, good middle sector there, has managed to get back within range of Daneco, but it is right on the bubble. The one person that's lost out big time in all that is Asako. He's lost DRS range to the drivers in front in that whole pit lane exit, so he's dropped to bathe a little bit. The good thing for him is that Isma's come out right in front of him, so that should be DRS once again for him. But Isma, with that 1 lap extra on those tyres, is now 2 seconds behind Ogiano. If I was Isma, I would have stayed out maybe 3 or 4 laps longer, so you actually gave yourself a tyre advantage rather than just coming in a lap later and sacrificing maybe a second and a half when you didn't need to.
Yeah, it's one of those. If you are going to do something different, you might as well go all in, go the whole hog, and just do something completely from left field. Go a lot longer on the soft tyres and have much better tyres at the end of the race. But maybe he was worried about losing the DRS to those front drivers. That's happened anyway. We've already seen how difficult it can be to regain that. So this is now the actual lead of the race, with a third of the race gone. And you'll notice it's got very cloudy here all of a sudden in the Styrian Mountains. Santeri in the lead from Fede, Fusilio, Casper and H-Eagle. This front train of 5 drivers. Jensen is in 6th place. Daneco is leading out of those who have pitted, and it's Matthew Alder, Max Wiesel, Ogiano, Isma, Asakone, Brock, Farby, Cornet and Volters. For 16 drivers left in this race. Jakita retired in the pits after contact. Hamilton was having connection issues, he retired, and we saw Lars retire as well, as Walters actually becomes our first driver to pick up a 3-second time penalty. Judging by the invalidations in qualifying, I was expecting to see a lot more black and white flags on that left-hand side of the screen, but fair play to them all. They're doing a good job at the moment. I think they've all learned with how close the pack can be around here, especially if we get a safety car, just how costly even one-time penalty can be.
Yeah, I think you're seeing as people are settling into DRS trains, they're just not pushing the limits. They're using DRS to help them close back in. They don't need to throw the car around in the middle part of the lap to keep up with the car in front, as you would at some other tracks that maybe only have 1 DRS zone. So they're just not at their limit really at the moment. When it comes towards the end of the race, we maybe see more penalties pop up, but at this point in the race, there's no need to push that hard. So they're just going to try and keep it within track limits and keep it as clean as possible. Daneco here has caught Jensen very, very quickly. Of course, Jensen's not had the pace today and has had an earlier spin, so his mediums will not be looking too healthy, and he's completely missed turn 1 as a result of that. So Daneco should get an easy move done here, and the lack of speed for Jensen and how close Matthew Alder is, I think Matthew Alder's going to make it 2 places lost in the same corner. In fact, Jensen's going to let them all through, so he's back behind his teammate now. He's 4 places lost in 1 corner, but that was voluntarily.
Yeah, very, very respectful driving there from Jensen. I think he realises his chances of getting anything out of this race have pretty much gone out the window, so no point in costing yourself even more time battling with those drivers and possibly getting yourself involved in an incident that you don't need to just let them all through, which I'm sure was music to the ears of Matthew, Max and Oggiano. Danico, not so much. I don't think he'd have minded getting through there and leaving all the others to battle. He's now got 7.5 seconds before he catches up to the rest of the cars on the mediums. It's going to be touch and go as to whether he does it before they come in to get rid of theirs and go onto the soft tyres. In probably the next 4 or 5 laps, we'll start seeing them come into the pits, maybe stretching it another 6 or 7. But this small gap, Matthew Older has really caught up at the moment, and he's got quite a bit more DRS, about 30% more at the moment. So despite that push earlier on, as Jensen now gets another time penalty, the Red Bull driver is in a fantastic position, and he could soon be in an effective race lead position. Stays behind into turn number 3, but Danico really starting to come under some pressure.
Yeah, starting to lose a bit more pace. He looked a bit more confident on the softs, didn't he, than the mediums. On the soft stint, he wasn't using his ERS at all, and now he's using a lot just to stay ahead. So, yeah, it's starting to shift, isn't it, the kind of who's looking good in this race or not. One person who has looked good is Isma. Somehow, Isma has caught these guys. He's used all of his ERS to get there, but he's crucially back within DRS range. So, in clean air, Isma's got some good pace. So he's caught back up, so it's now a 5-car train for the net lead of this race. So he's not out of it just yet. He has left Asacombe behind, so Asacombe is kind of now really in a race of his own. He's almost going to be kind of like what Jensen was just a couple of laps ago. He looks like he's just going to be a buffer between those on the softs at the end and those on the mediums right now. He just can't keep pace with the top 5 in this race. Still a solid result on the cars, possibly for the AlphaTauri driver, but he would be gutted that he's just seen the rest of the top 5 that he was battling earlier on just pulling away from him.
Yeah, that could really cost him later on once the soft runners start to catch up. And I think this time he's a lot closer, so we are going to see the change. No, deciding just to back off, stay back for now, knows there's perhaps not too much point fighting hard at the moment, but they're not gaining too much time over those up ahead. Danico's only caught about 7 or 8 tenths of a second in just over a lap, and Matthew Older needs to be careful that he's not too slow about getting this move done, because there's a very eager man in a Ferrari trying to get himself up. Max Wiesel, 3rd in the championship at the moment, effectively 3rd in the race. He's yet to win a race this season. We've seen 3 from Matthew and 2 from Isma. He'll be determined to get himself up there and right that wrong. Did get pole position, of course, in round 1 of the season in Portugal, but was unable to take the victory there. Did suffer last time out from his tyres completely falling off the cliff at the end of the Hungarian Grand Prix. But these drivers being very well behaved now, just staying in that position. And this is, of course, giving Isma a chance to rebuild that ERS, rebuild some of that battery power. Maybe don't count him out for later on in this race. Further up the field, Fede stays behind Santeri. He's managed to save all of his ERS as well since that change of position quite a few laps ago. This is the time that we see Matthew Older dive it down the inside into turn number 3. He takes the net lead of this race, and Max Wiesel looking as though he's going to try to follow through. Just not able to get the traction at this moment in time. So it's Matthew Older in the net lead, Danico in 2nd, and I think now we might see Danico, a bit like we've seen with Isma, just stay behind and try to save some of that battery.
Yeah, it's probably the smart choice at this point in the race. We're only just coming up to halfway distance in this race, so there's still plenty of time to go for Danico to get that lead back. And I was just riding on board with Asacombe, actually, just as we were talking about him losing touch. He's now right back within touch of these 5 drivers, and that is plain and simply because as Matthew Older was going for that move, everybody behind Matthew Older and Danico didn't want to then run into the back of the 2 drivers in front, so they backed off completely in turn 3. And the Constantina effect at turn number 3 here can be really horrible when Asacombe took, well, the best part of 6 tenths of a second out of them in one corner. So that is the problem with swapping, with the drivers swapping places at the head of a DRS train. You're just going to cause the drivers behind to slow up massively, and it's going to give those behind the better opportunity to close back up again, as it looks like it's going to be round number, well, 10 million at this point coming up to turn 3. In fact, nobody decides to go for the move apart from Isma at the back of the queue. Seeing an opportunity, Oggiano was playing it safe behind. Isma's going to try and get down the inside. Bautis was retired in the pit lane, his teammate. Isma, though, down the inside towards turn number 4. Can he get the move done? On the brakes into the corner, he should get the move done. He'll have a shallower line though, so he won't get the best exit, but he wants Oggiano out of road, and that is a smart move from Isma. He saw Oggiano playing it safe and he took full advantage of it.
That is how you pass in a DRS train, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes you've just got to lick the stamp and send it. Exactly what Isma's done. Got himself up into 9th place at the moment. Jensen picks up a 3-second time penalty. You can see he's now on 6, so very unlikely he's going to score any points with things the way they are at the moment. We said don't count out Isma. He's got the fresher tyres of these drivers. Once they start hitting that 60% point, that's where you tend to get a severe drop-off. And that might just be the opportunity that Isma needs. Very similar to what we saw last week, where he just worked his way past Max Wiesel and off into the distance at the end. We'll be hoping to do something similar this time around. Uses a bit of ERS to see if he can close up, but I think even for him, he's too far behind on this occasion to really send a move. And Daneko doing what we expected, just playing it safe, just staying underneath the rear wing of that Red Bull driver, of our championship leader. We're just over the halfway point in this race. We've still got a lot of drivers to pit as Wiesel and Isma just sort of feint the move. They're trying to put off the driver in front, but these have done way too many laps and are far too wise to fall for any of the tactics like that. In the actual lead though, we've got Santeri still from Fede, Fusilio, Casper and H-Eagle still sticking in this train together, still dragging each other along with the ERS. When they come out of the pits, they'll be round about where Brock is at the moment. If they could get ahead of Brock and get in some clear air, that would of course leave them in a brilliant opportunity to get up to Jensen and get themselves right onto the back of that train for the effective lead of this race.
I mean, we saw with Asacome and Isma, they both had no ERS, but the Constantina effect of the drivers in front meant that they were able to catch up with those drivers quite quickly. So that, teamed with a fresh set of soft compound tyres, these drivers in the lead of the race could have a massive pace advantage at the end. We've got a yellow flag. That looks like it's Jensen that's had a spin. So his race goes from bad to worse to utterly horrible at the moment. He's now down to 13th place and still yet to make his first stop in the race. So he is hoping for some absolute carnage at the end of this race to really salvage anything from it. Daneko again getting close to the back of Matthew Older. And look at the battery Daneko has. He's been behind Matthew Older for about four or so laps. And that battery is back up to 80%. That is how easy it is to save ERS. But the crucial thing is that Matthew Older's not used anything in the lead of this train. So he's still sitting pretty in that Red Bull.
Yeah, and I think we've seen once you do lose your ERS, just how much of a sitting duck you are here, especially around this circuit. You've got no chance of defending from the car behind. If they've got enough battery to get down the three main straights and you haven't, you are really going to be in up the proverbial without a paddle, unfortunately. 16 laps to go then. Still the leaders are plodding along. Still Daneko stays at the back of Matthew Older, and still Max Wiesel has to cope, as he has for most of this race, with two cars ahead of him. Knowing he's got the DRS, but knowing he's not really able to do a lot. Is he going to think about a move on Daneko? Again, just feints to the inside, thinks better of it, as Oggiano decided to pay his back for that move earlier. Another late send into turn number 3, but it's worked for the Alpine driver. Back up into a net 4th position.
Yeah, good move there from Oggiano, and it's a good showing from Oggiano, isn't it? He's not had the best of seasons so far, and this is the best we've seen of him so far, so it's nice to see a new face at the front of the field. As per usual, it's always nice to see a new face at the front, and yeah, surprised Isma didn't see that one coming, considering he pulled the exact same move off just 4 or so laps ago. So yeah, Oggiano back up into a net 4th, and still within a good shot of a podium, and you never know, still within a good shot of a win. Matthew Oda's literally only a second up the road.
Yeah, any penalties, of course, would be crucial, would be diabolical for any of the lead cars. Casper's the first one to blink then, into the pits, off that set of the medium tyres, onto the softs. He's, of course, willing to try and pull off that undercut, maybe even against all the cars that he was battling with. Out on his fresh set of the soft tyres, it's going to be pretty close here with Brock, but I would expect the Haas driver to just claim that position on the exit. In fact, Casper might end up just staying ahead as Max Wiesel's now sent it on Daneko into turn number 3. He's got the traction. They've both got the DRS, of course. And that is Max Wiesel up into a net 2nd place in this race. Didn't get the DRS, and Daneko might think about fighting back. In the end, he's just too far behind to go for it. Well, that's the first change we've had in the front 3 for a while. Max Wiesel up into a net 2nd place, and Casper did, crucially, get himself ahead of Brock. Now he's just got to push for the next 15 laps. How high up the order can the McLaren driver get?
Well, he's got a clean run at the back of Asacome, isn't he, for a net 6th place, so it's all going to be about what kind of pace he has got. The leaders are still staying out. I would have expected someone to have reacted to Casper, so I'm wondering if these top 4 drivers are still thinking that weather may play a part in this race. So we, of course, could be expecting some rain at the end. We don't know if it's going to come. We don't know how heavy it's going to be, but it could be a factor in the latter stages of this race. So I'm wondering whether some of these top 4 are banking on that rain coming, or whether they're banking on some sort of safety car in the next couple of laps or so. Either way, none of them have reacted to Casper coming in. So Casper now has a great opportunity at undercutting all of those drivers that he was racing with in that queue. He's got 11 seconds to Asacome. It's a lot of time to make up, but with the battling that's going on between Matthew Older and the 4 drivers behind him, I wouldn't be surprised if he could gain chunks of seconds out of them in a lap with the way that they're fighting at the moment.
Yeah, of course, for DRS, it's going to be helping these drivers at the front a lot. So being close together, they're gaining plenty of time on the straights, they're probably losing it on the corners. We're expecting 50-50 chance of rain at 45 minutes. With the pace these drivers are going, we're not getting to 45 minutes in this race, and that could be crucial. Oggiano, the first one of this lead group then to pick up a 3-second time penalty. As things stand, that would only drop him 2 places. Later on, once we've got all the soft runners catching up, that could drop him plenty more as well, as they still plod on at the front of the field. Santeri, Fede, Fusilio and H-Eagle. We've got Fusilio all over the back of Fede here, but I think in this DRS train there's not a lot he can do, as Fede thinks about one up the inside again, decides better of it. Daneko round the outside, goes into the back of Matthew Older. That's going to be some words at the end of the race, and Max Wiesel says, thank you very much, I will take the lead. I think Daneko, he was just trying to attack Max Wiesel, braked a bit late, all of a sudden he's into the back of the Red Bull.
Yeah, I'll be amazed if Daneko's got away with that as well with no damage. Now Oggiano and Isma goes side. Isma's dropped the car. Isma has dropped the car completely on his own coming out of turn number 4. I don't think there was any contact. Just on the inside line, has got too eager on the power and has dropped the car. Second place in the championship, winner last time out. That is a crucial mistake. Just as a window of opportunity could have opened with that bit of contact for Matthew Older, Isma spun down the field and crucially behind Casper. That is a disaster for Isma. Without a safety car or carnage at the end of this race, Isma is not going to finish anywhere near the top 5. It's going to struggle to finish in the points now.
Yeah, I don't think he's got a hope in hell of finishing the points as things stand, unless something dramatic happens in the race. It's not been the lap you'd have wanted then for the top few drivers, as Santeri has actually lost 2 places. These drivers, I think, are really taking all they've got out of these medium tyres at the moment. Fede takes the lead in this race. Santeri in second. Fusilio ends up staying in third. Max Wiesel is starting to close up to these drivers, and I think he's going to lose the place. So as Matthew Older sends one down the inside into turn number 4. Thank you very much, says Matthew Older. He retakes the net lead of this race. Max Wiesel stays in the net second. Daneko didn't get any damage from that one, and it will be interesting to see at the end of the race whether there is any reports from Matthew Older, because he hasn't lost out too much from that. Did lose a position at the time, but he has managed to gain it back, of course. And now Oggiano and Asacombe are starting to put that pressure on the back of Oggiano as well. Casper in 10th place and Isma in 11th. He needs rain to come or a safety car if he wants any chance of getting points in this race, as Santeri still closing all over the back of Fede. These front 4 drivers have pretty much nailed their flag now to the it's going to rain mast in this race. Surely, if you're going to carry on this long, you might as well just see if there's going to be any rain or see if there's a safety car.
Yeah, they've just got to keep going now, and as we say that, there's the rain. The rain is coming down on the screen, so the rain has come. It's now dependent on how heavy the rain is and how quickly it comes down. What these leaders could be here on their really old medium tyres is roadblocks for our net leaders, and that could play beautifully into Casper's hands. If it doesn't rain enough for the intermediate tyres, then Casper here could be sitting pretty. Currently in 10th, 9.5 seconds behind Asacombe, but we've got a queue of slow cars coming up here as Matthew Older trying to find a way past his teammate, but Eagle obviously not, as Max Wiesel now with a time penalty. That's another driver at the front of the field with a crucial penalty in this race. Eagle will not want to lose track position to his teammate here, because if they do have to pit for inters, Eagle could get massively run over here by his teammate in that sense. But the pace difference at the moment, I would not be surprised if Matthew Older's straight through. He's weaving, I think, trying to tell Eagle to move out of the way, but Eagle doesn't want to give up the position that easily.
I mean, who can blame him? He thinks I've got a chance of a podium here. All of a sudden, he's getting almost pushed down the straight by his teammate. But I think Matthew Older's running out of ERS, almost collides down the straight. That'd be an embarrassing thing to do at your team's home race. Round the outside, though, he's got the pace on the tyres to do it and gets that position. And Max Wiesel, who has got a 3-second time penalty and all of that, follows through as well. So it's Santeri on his debut in the lead of this race. And you've got to say, you can argue he's in the net lead of this race if it rains hard enough for us to need a set of the intermediate tyres, but it doesn't look like it is at the moment. We will check the lap times as they go along to see how they change and how they dip. Last lap around was a 106.7 for Santeri, only 0.8 of a second off his best lap of the race. Matthew Older, though, on those fresher tyres, unsurprisingly, even in these slippery conditions, has got a lot more grip at the moment. He's got ahead of H-Eagle, as does Max and Dan Urco. He's now all over the back of Fusilio as that lap around for Santeri. 107.1. They're still not losing lots of time.
No, not losing lots of time, and of course they're all still fighting as well, so that's also helping the times drop at the moment. It's Matthew Order now with a brilliant run on the back of Fusilio for third on the road, but Fusilio's going to have a run on Fede, and Fede's going to have a run on Santeri, so it's all going to swing about at the front of the field. Matthew Order goes to the outside. He's not quite, I think it's just going to get boxed in on the exit of the corner. Fusilio's there, Santeri there as well, so it's going to have to be a move at 4 for Matthew Order to get through, but he can't take too many risks, of course. Championship leader, he's got a massive opportunity here of extending his championship lead. He doesn't want to waste this opportunity, but he also wants to try and get through into the net lead. He's trying the move on Fusilio. Is he going to try and get 2 for 1 at turn number 6 down the inside? He gets it done. That is just the benefit of better grip. Timed it to perfection, gets the move done, and Max is going to make it 3 places lost for Santeri in 2 corners. His tyres are completely finished.
Let's not forget, Santeri started this lap in the lead of this race. He's going to finish it in, at best, 6th position. He might be even further down the order because Oggiano's not too far behind him as well. But it's Fede in the lead of this race. Matthew Older right behind him at the moment. And I thought for a second there he was going to even possibly have a move into turn number 1. Fusilio, Max Wiesel, Dan Urco, Santeri, Oggiano, Asacombe, H-Eagle. We have got the lead 9 cars separated by 2 seconds with only 8 laps to go in this race as Matthew Older does take the lead in a very straightforward DRS pass, and Max Wiesel in a slightly less straightforward pass down the inside on Oggiano, on Fusilio, sorry, as Oggiano works his way past Santeri. It is all kicking off as we check the times again on that lap. 106 for Matthew Older, so this is a risky strategy because in a few laps' time, those on the medium tyres are going to be extremely close to getting a puncture.
I'm amazed they've not got a puncture already. 28 laps on these mediums from the very start on heavy fuel, and now in slippery conditions. They are going to be completely dead. So, yeah, I'm surprised we've not seen any of them really get a puncture yet. And the rain as it is now, H-Eagle now the next one with the penalty. With the rain as it is now, we're not going to get intermediate conditions. It's not raining anywhere near hard enough for this strategy to work. As Max Wiesel's going for it at turn 10. Down the inside, gets the move done on the Alpha Tower and is up into 2nd place. But that's just going to give the DRS opportunity back to Fede and Fusilio. So they could get back past him if they get a good enough run out of turn 1. But just the lack of grip for Fede's car, and Max Wiesel's gapped him by nearly a second just down a straight in 1 corner. And now it's Danerco's opportunity to get 2 for 1 here down the inside. He's going to have to take a really tight line into the hairpin, but look how much later on the brakes he can be in the Aston Martin down the inside. That was easier than he made it look, really, and he's down the inside up into 3rd position. Fede down to 4th, and Asacombe now all of a sudden up into 6th position. So he's now looking like he's on for a really good opportunity in this race.
Yeah, I think what actually happened with Fede there is he almost lost it coming through turn number 9, and Max Wiesel had a choice between slamming it on the brakes or going for an overtake into turn number 10. So probably did the right thing, and you can see here he's got a penalty, and Matthew Older all of a sudden has the biggest lead we've seen of anyone in this race. 1.3 seconds is the lead with 6 laps to go. We're starting to see rain on the camera, but unless it really starts throwing it down in the next lap or 2, we might be on slick tyres towards the end, which is a disaster if you're Fusilio, Fede, Santeri and H-Eagle. And in fact, Casper has nearly caught up to these drivers on his fresh set of soft tyres. Let's not count him out in this race if it stays at this sort of conditions for the remainder. 6 laps to go. It's looking good for Matthew Older, but I think all the rest of the positions you can pretty much flip a coin, roll a dice, whatever you want to do at this moment in time. Max Wiesel does have a penalty, so that's going to cost him. Asacombe gets his way past Fede, and Oggiano tries as well. He's going to find it a bit harder to get past the Alpha Tauri, but manages to make it work. He's now up into 6th, but he also has a 3-second time penalty. We'll check the penalty situation there, but it is only Jensen at the back of the field with multiple seconds. And Jensen, he could have a crucial part to play here, because if he's communicating with Oggiano, it might be worth him going on a set of the intermediate tyres first, just to test the waters for his teammates.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it, isn't it? Because Jensen at this point, there's no chance of him getting any points, so he may as well try something a little bit different and see if it works, and then report back to his teammate, like you say, and see if he can benefit from it. But still, at the moment, we're not anywhere near intermediate conditions as Matthew Order crosses the line. It's still in the 1:06s. He's lost about a second to his personal best, but it's still solid lap time. So we're still nowhere near, as now Santeri gets past Fede and up into 7th position. But just look how far Santeri and Fede have plummeted in this period of the race. Fusillo is the only one that's managed to hold steady towards the front of the field, but still his strategy isn't going to work. And Asicombe now breezes past and goes up into 4th position in the AlphaTauri. So he's looking on for his best result of the season by a long way at the moment. Can he get back into range of Denurco's DRS range and maybe steal a podium off of Max Wiesel because of his penalty?
As things stand at the moment, I think he would get a podium. He's not had any points this season, and all of a sudden, he's got a possibility of a podium. Daneko's trying to work his way back to Max Wiesel to have any chance of taking the victory in this race. Oggiano battling hard with Fusilio, who's hanging on there. The driver on the pad in these slippery conditions is doing an absolutely superb job. Is Fusilio, and he holds it round the outside to stay in 5th position for now. Things going to bad to worse then for Oggiano. H-Eagle all over the back of Fede, who I think has decided enough is enough. I'm coming into the pits, but what tyres do you put on in this situation? Do you go for a set of softs? Do you go for intermediates? We're going to find out very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. Down towards the pit lane speed limit, 50 miles per hour, 80 kilometres an hour around this circuit. About average for what we expect as he pulls into the garage. And it is a set of the soft tyres for him as Daneco works his way past Max Wiesel up into 2nd.
Yeah, 2nd position for Denurco, and crucially for Denurco, he's now got a little bit of ERS that he can use to maybe get within range of Matthew Older here. So can Denurco now fight for the win of this race against the Red Bull? That is the key question for the last part of this race. These two seem to be the fastest this whole race long, so can Denurco use that pace to get up towards the Red Bull and steal the win off of him at the moment? It's going to be a tall order, but if he can get within DRS range, he's got all the chance of stealing this race win away from him.
Yeah, certainly. He's just got to try and get within that 1 second, because as you can say, oh, I think Max Wiesel spun! Ferrari around. Max Wiesel loses it out of turn number 8. That is a disaster for him. Goodbye. Even a slim chance of getting a podium, and he needs to be careful here because he might even lose a chance of getting any points. The rear tyres are absolutely cooked, and in these conditions, he's like Bambi on ice in that Ferrari. Some cruel people might say Sebastian Vettel in the 2020 season, and I suppose I must be a cruel person because I've just said it as well, but he's really struggling. Look at Casper though, up into 7th place, and he's got 2 drivers ahead of him that have got to come into the pit, and Oggiano ahead of him who's got a penalty as well. Casper, after qualifying in 18th, could finish in the top 4.
Yeah, he read it perfectly, didn't he? By coming in for those softs, he knew that the rain wasn't going to be heavy and has come in for the softs, and it's worked beautifully. I'm still utterly shocked that no one, look how quickly he's catching Santeri. Wow, he's made that look so easy. That's made it look like Santeri's in a different formula in this race. Casper's just got so much more pace. And now Fusillo, I think, has got a puncture. Yeah, Fusillo's got a puncture. So there you go. First puncture of the race. We made it 34 laps in the race. Fair play to get that far without a puncture, but it is that's race over really for Fusillo now. So Casper up into 5th. He has got a 2.5 seconds really to get within Oggiano's range and be safe for a 4th place finish in this race. And there still could be a battle at the front of the field yet. We don't know, but as it stands, with 2 laps to go, Denurco just can't get within Matthew Older's range.
Yeah, H-Eagle's coming to the pits. He's decided enough is enough. Of course, next lap, they're on to lap number 34 now. Eagle's pitted on 33. 35, they're on to lap 35. That's the latest you can pit. They've got to pit next time around if they don't go on to get disqualified. And you never know what could happen. Crazier things have happened in Formula 1. Farby now, he gets a penalty for exceeding track limits. I wonder if he's got a puncture as well. No, he's just lost it at turn number 8, I think, on his own accord. What is wrong with the Ferrari? It's losing it out of turn number 8, but it's been a disaster all of a sudden for the Ferrari team. Matthew Older looking pretty clear in this race, though. He's had a puncture when you wouldn't expect it, though, in damp conditions. Let's not forget the French Grand Prix where he took the victory. I think he's going to be safe with that one. Daneco has completely, well, obviously thanks to the spring, completely got ahead of Max Wiesel. Farby does retire in the pits. Asicombe in 3rd. Oggiano is doing a great job at the moment. He's just holding on to this position from Casper. He might just hold on to this 4th place.
Yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it? Casper just doesn't seem to have the raw speed anymore in those soft tyres to make it work. But either way, a 5th place finish in this race for Casper is a great comeback from where he qualified as Max Wiesel and Santeri. Now, Santeri he's left it to the very last moment and is diving into the pit lane. Santeri, fair play, did pretty much the entire race on the same set of tyres and didn't get a puncture. So fair play to him, but it's all going to come to nothing, isn't it? That strategy is just going to drop him out of the points. And despite his terrible strategy, Fede has somehow managed to salvage an 8th place finish out of this race.
Yeah, and somehow, I don't know how this has happened, Isma's in 7th, despite that crazy spin that he had earlier on. He's in 7th place, so damage limitation, not bad at all, but Matthew Older is going to take a massive lead in the championship after this race. He's played it well with the strategy, made the moves through the traffic as the rain started to fall down, and they're still doing reasonable lap times in 106s and 107s despite the rain conditions. I think it's lighter than it was earlier on, so it effectively stayed dry in this race. It just got a bit slippery in Styria, but Matthew Alder heads towards the finish line to take his 4th victory of the season. It's a win for Red Bull at the Red Bull Ring. Daneyko takes 2nd, a first podium, first points of the season for Asacombe in 3rd place. Oggiano is in 4th. Casper turned out to be the right thing, pitting earlier on for those soft tyres. He comes home in 5th. Max Wiesel is 6th. Isma in 7th. Fede will be in 8th place. And I think Santeri dives it down the inside of Brock at the final corner. I think Brock might have disconnected from the session, so it's going to be Santeri getting his first points of the season. Cornet comes home in 10th as well after that incident. And then Brock, Jensen, Eagle and Fusilio, the final finishers. But a textbook performance from Matthew Alder. He is starting to look very, very handy at the top of this championship.
He really is, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's another win, but more importantly than that, it is a crushing blow against Max and Isma, isn't it? Max and Isma, when they needed to have good races, they both made crucial errors in this one and cost themselves valuable points. Matthew Alder didn't make those mistakes, and all that point lead that he lost in the last race with that penalty, he's pretty much regained it all back in this one. So Hungary is pretty much null and void now for Matthew Alder, back to the strong championship lead he had 2 rounds ago. And by the way, Brock ran out of fuel before the final corner, which is why he dropped so many places towards the end.
Such a shame for Brock. Would have been some more points. Drive of the day for Casper. I was regretting my prediction for him for the win when he qualified 18th, but it somehow got a lot closer than I think even he would have imagined in the final stages. But there's no surprise who takes the win. Matthew Alder in 1st place, Daneyko in 2nd, but definitely a surprise. You know, credit where it's due. Asacombe kept it nice and clean when so many others struggled, and he takes his first podium of the season. The rest of the provisional results then, of course, barring any penalties. Oggiano finishing in 4th, his best result of the season. Casper getting off the mark as well with a 5th place. Max Wiesel, he could have been so much higher, but that spin costing him. Isma as well had that issue, contact I think with Oggiano. He ends up in 7th. Fede makes it a double point score for AlphaTauri. Santeri points on his debut. Cornet with his first point of the season. Brock running out of fuel at the end. Eagle, Jensen, consolation for the fastest lap, and Fusilio were the final finishers. And we saw Farby retiring the pits towards the end. Walters also retiring, as did Lars, Hamilton and Jacquita. I mean, I don't know what to say about that race, Aiden. Again, seems like we're cursed. We're cursed with rain here in PSF1.
Yeah, we really are, aren't we? It's that, what was that, 4 out of 6 now that have been somewhat weather affected in this one. So yeah, that was a really, really interesting race from start to finish, that one was, wasn't it? It was all the things that we said may happen in this race didn't seem to happen at the end, really, did it? The alternate strategy wasn't that powerful because simply no one wanted to go for it. There was not many people who had penalties in the end, and we had no safety cars in crazily, but despite there being no safety cars, it was still a crazy race. And yet again, Matthew Alder proving his worth in this championship, isn't he? He's just so strong. Even when it doesn't look like he's going to win a race, he pulls it out of the bag in the second half of the race. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's exactly it. Just pulling it out of the bag, showing that. It's weird to say about someone who's only 16 years old, just showing that experience that he's got from his many years now that he's been here in PSGL. It could have gone so horribly wrong, though, for him and the man who finished in 2nd. Let's not forget Daneyko. Quite a hefty hit into turn number 3. Very surprised the Aston Martin got away without any damage.
Yeah, I think he's really lucky in that sense, isn't he? That would, I think in any other situation, that would have been some sort of front wing damage or possibly even rear wing damage for Matthew Alder. It was a pretty hefty hit, but I think the fact that Matthew Alder won and Daneyko finished 2nd, I think that makes that kind of incident just null and void in the end, doesn't it? It was just kind of just a little bit of a moment in the race that they could possibly both forget about, but they are both very lucky to get away with that.
Yeah, I think very lucky to get away with that one as well. And let's not forget, same lap, we had Isma having that massive issue, you know, battling with Oggiano, just getting a bit hot on the tyres. He must be gutted with possibly looking at how things went at the end, a missed opportunity.
Yeah, definitely a missed opportunity for Isma, isn't it? He had solid pace in the race. I don't think he would have been challenging for the win at the end. He just didn't seem to have that extra couple of percent, really, did he, against Daneyko and Matthew Alder? But it still could have been a strong podium for him, and that would have been damage limitation if Matthew Alder had still won the race in that circumstance. But yeah, just a an untimely kind of almost rookie error in a sense, wasn't it? Just losing the rear of the car out of 4, battling another driver, I think just too eager to hold on to the position against Ogiano, who still had a penalty at that point in the race and just dropped the car. So yeah, a little bit of a small error with big consequences, and that at this point in the championship is something that Isman did not need.
Yeah, certainly. And Formula One always has been a sport of fine margins. Casper calling it right, going towards the set of soft tyres. Everyone else would have looked like geniuses if the rain had come down harder. We could have seen, Santeri, Fede, Eagle, all these drivers battling for the win. In the end, I think Fede and Santeri, the only ones really to get away getting any points out of that one. And that's just the way it goes at times. But we were expecting, like I said, 50-50 chance of rain at 45 minutes. It started raining at around the 30 minute, where the chance of rain was about 30%. And that's the thing with approximate... It's a weather forecast, They're predicting the future. They're good at it, but it's never going to be perfect.
No, it's never going to be perfect, like you say, and you've always got to take it a bit with a pinch of salt, haven't you? So even with that small percentage, it still happened, but that's the thing as well, you can't tell how intense the rain is going to be either. Some of these drivers maybe thought that the rain would come maybe 5 laps later, but it'd be a lot heavier, and you have to intermediates within the first couple of laps of the rain coming down, but that wasn't the case, and some played it right, some gambled, and the gamble didn't pay off. For Casper, the gamble did pay off, and for the rest of them that were on that strategy, it didn't. So I'm just still surprised that Casper was the only one to go onto the soft compound tyres when he did. I would have expected at least one other driver maybe to follow him in, but yeah, Casper was the only one, and he got rewarded for it.
Yeah, he took the gamble, and sometimes you've got to go all in. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win the raffle. And a great performance from Casper, and hopefully for him, that kickstarts his season. We're going to head our way over then to the interview room, get ready to speak to all the podium sitters from this race, and we're going to start off with the man who has taken his 4th victory of the season. It is Matthew Alder. Congratulations once again on the win. I imagine that rain made it a bit more complicated than you'd have liked.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw it was going to rain at the end of the race, I knew there would be the Austria runners who I'd have to probably get past to the end. And then when the rain came, when I got onto the back of them, I really didn't expect it, because I really thought it was going to be right at the end of the race if it was going to rain at all. It didn't rain hard enough for the Inters though, so all I had to do was just pick them off one by one, and I made that really nice overtake on 2 of them into the double left in the middle sector, which was great.
Yeah, just talk us through that overtake, because crucially that got cars between yourself and Max Wiesel, and then allowed you to build that 1 second gap, and from then on, no one could get close to you in the DRS.
Yeah, I mean, changeable conditions seemed to be really good for me, so as soon as I got that double over done, got past Fede on the second straight, I just had to monitor the gap, make sure it didn't go under a second, and just constantly burn from my ERS. He didn't have any either, so I knew that if I just burned through it rather than saved, he will have no chance of getting into my DRS. And then he crashed, so it was Nico who was now trying to catch up to me, but yeah, it was just the same, really just made sure I didn't go under a second.
Yeah, certainly did work out well for you. And Aidan, any questions for our race winner?
I think I'll go with one of my usual questions. We've got Jeddah next time out, another completely different track. How do you feel about Jeddah? Is that a track that you enjoy particularly, or is it somewhere that you think you may struggle a bit more?
It's all going to depend on if you get the rhythm, because if you hit one more, you're probably not going to finish the race. But if you don't hit anything, then you'll probably get a nice result. Yeah,
exactly. And then, of course, you mentioned as well that wet weather seems to be your kind of specialty so far this season. We've had a lot of wet weather interfering races as well. Where do you think that kind of comes from, that kind of wet weather performance? It seems to be your biggest specialty so far this season. So where do you think that kind of comes from, that wet weather pace?
I have no idea what you just said. I was lagging.
So I was basically asking about your wet weather pace. How do you think that came about? Why do you think you're so strong in the wet?
I have no idea. Maybe just good at adapting to different situations. Maybe that's probably what it is. I don't think there's really, you're good at the rain or you're not good at the rain is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, definitely. But congratulations on your 4th win of the season.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations to Matthew on another victory, and it's the best result of the season for the man who finished in 2nd place. It is Dan Urco. Congratulations on that on, another fantastic result for yourself. Do you think if you could have stayed within the DRS range of Matthew, you'd have had a chance of getting the win?
I don't know really, because I lost a bit of time with the OP guys. I think there was like Fede and Fusillo. I lost a bit of time passing them, and then I had Max in front of me and Matthew out of DRS. I was thinking about harvesting a bit of battery and then try the madness in the last 2 laps, but as soon as I overtook Max, my tires just died. So yeah, I was happy with the pace because I stayed in first place for quite a while, and it was like a bit of a chess match, and yeah, I'm happy with it. And Matthew did a great job, and yeah, congratulations to him.
Yeah, definitely did a good job, as did yourself. Tell us about that little bit of contact you had with Matthew. It looked as though you were trying to overtake Max around the outside, and then all of a sudden there was a Red Bull in the way.
Yeah, I think I missed the breaking point by like 10 meters maybe, and even 10 meters can count. And I also had Max on my right, so it was a bit argy-bargy.
Yeah, thankfully both of you were able to get away with that unscathed. I'll pass you over for Aidan, who I'm sure has got some questions.
Yeah, so obviously we're coming up to the halfway point in the championship now, and a lot of people around you in the championship didn't have the best of races today. So what's your target moving forward in terms of championship position? You thinking you can challenge for the title in the second half, or are you thinking maybe somewhere second or third?
Yeah, always the main thing is just to have fun, and I hope to be as fast as I was today. And Austria is not my best track, so I was happy with it. And yeah, I had a bit of unlucky races like Hungary with the hard tires that didn't pay off, and maybe a bit of contact in the first races. And also it's raining every race. I'm slow in the rain, so yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll ask the same question I asked as well to Matthew. Jeddah next time out. How do you feel about Jeddah?
It's a really fun track because you are always near the walls, and it's all about take patience because the rest straights are so long, and so it's a bit like Austria, bit of a chess match again, maybe.
Yeah, definitely expecting that. So yeah, congratulations on your podium and enjoy it. Hopefully we'll see you again here very soon.
Yeah, thank you guys for the live stream.
Yeah, no worries. Congrats to Dan Aiko and Matthew as well. Congrats to Asakov. I don't believe we are going to get him in for the podium interview. So that is pretty much it then for this stream. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And as we've already heard from Aidan, next time around, it is going to be Jeddah for the first time in PSGL history. And I think everyone's already summed up what we can expect from that circuit. Imagine Monaco turned up to 11.
Yeah, pretty much, isn't it? It's Monaco, but you're flat out the whole time rather than on 50% throttle the whole time. It's a crazy fast track, and like you mentioned, the 3 DRS zones, half the track is pretty much an entire straight line. There's going to be so much slipstream playing a factor. It's one of the longest tracks on the calendar, but because the track is so fast, it's one of the shortest races on the calendar. So, going to be a lot to look out for next time. I'm sure it's going to be it's either going to be a thriller like we had today, or it's going to be absolute carnage. I'm hoping it's the former.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, every race I've commentated on around Jeddah has ended up in a fantastic final lap battle. So hopefully we get something similar there. And you don't have to wait long to see some action around the Jeddah circuit, because you'll be able to catch, of course, the PC top tier there on Wednesday with Ginger Andy and Dan Field. The rest of the PC tiers are going to be there on the Thursday, tier 2 as well, and some of the lower tiers on the PlayStation, and then the rest of the PS tiers on the Sunday and the Monday with myself and Aidan once again at 8 PM. And once again, here in the top tier, it has been Matthew Older taking now his 4th victory of the season, extending his lead in the championship to more than a race win. Can Isma, Max, Daneko and the rest fight back in Saudi Arabia, or will we see the Red Bull ride off into the distance in the desert. You'll have to catch us in a week's time to find out. Thanks to Aidan for joining me in the commentary box, and thank you so much to you guys as well for joining us. And we'll see you in a week's time for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Good night.